Water Citizen was founded to bring together the water community to provide water news, education, and watertainment for people who are passionate about water. And if you've ever seen our water psychographic, it's a pyramid kind of population versus engagement levels. Everything from water professionals who are, often have extensive training in water. They are working full-time in water. They are paid to think about water. And they're the ones who can really pay for professional publications. And of course, there are some publications and some trade journals that are free to people within certain professions, but only to people in those professions, and that's so that providers, say in the plumbing industry, can target those readers for advertising, which is totally fine. And same thing for the publications for the associations. I mean, those are free if you pay however many hundreds of dollars a year for membership, and then if you go to the conference, that's another $1,000 plus travel. It's really communications that are focused on people in the industry. Then, of course, you've got a few free publications that are generally by advocates, by people who are trying to advocate certain positions on water, which often Water Citizen, and I don't know if it's because of the word citizen and because confusion with Public Citizen, which is an advocacy organization, but we're not an advocacy organization. I have no dog in the fight. I have no cat in the fight. I come at it 20 years of working in water resources planning and policy. It was my role to bring together all of the water interests in a particular basin or around a particular project, to determine environmental impacts, to work towards collaborative solutions and planning, to make sure all the voices were there and were heard, the cities, the farmers, the environmental groups, the industries, and to make sure they were actually communicating with each other. So one of the things we talk about with Water Citizen is an effort to de-wonk water, to find ways to tell the stories, to capture and tell the stories of water in a way that anybody can understand, regardless of what their background is and where they're coming from on this. So basically, the idea that people would be able to come on the show and demonstrate a new technology, or talk about a new policy, or talk about a film festival or concert or something that's going on in water. One of the things that we found with what I call Water Citizens is people who are really into water, whether they're working professionally or doing it on a volunteer basis, a board member, a member of Rotary, that they spend all of their spare time doing something that's very water related, is that they're interested in water on many different levels. And that's one of the reasons for Water Citizen News, that it's set up like a regular newspaper with sections on policy, business, technology, sports, arts, culture, because you can find water-related stories in all those areas. And that's part of what we've done over the last couple of years since we launched Water Citizen News. We set it up basically as that was our first site, and we set up as essentially a Huffington Post on water. I had been in the graduate program in multimedia journalism at University of Maryland at the time, and really looked at Huffington Post, Washington Post, New York Times, all the digital platforms for the major news sites. And people are used to seeing news in these sort of major categories of business, policy, technology, sports. We have a section called Community, and that's where we do a lot of profiles, our Hispanic Water Leaders series, our Women Water Utility Leaders. Those all went into the community section. You see the Water Select recognition there, and again, I want to point out that we are not selling advertising at this time on Water Citizen News. Very very conscious choice there. It's just too competitive a market right now, with all the other publications that are primarily focused on advertising as their source of revenue. And really, we don't want to, we're not looking to compete with the associations and everybody else. Oops, I'm getting lots of birthday wishes. That's nice. You may have seen things like our Water in the Olympics series. We talked to a number of Olympians and looked at whether it was the technical aspects of water and the way that Michael Phelps moves through the water and the way he wiggles his fingers, to interviewing kids who are Olympic divers and how they are providing new opportunities through sports, for being able to get scholarships, etc. We've really been looking at new technologies, and that's one of the reasons, again, why talking with whether it's folks like Water Select, whether it's big new desal plants, etc. We had smart farmers use smartphones for smart water, really showing how different people within the water community are, not just the technologies themselves, but how that's shaping the way that we do water. Business is also a huge recognition of water in the economy. So we're trying to identify some of these stories in water and how we can capture those within Water Citizen. The news site is good as far as it goes. And I think at some point, if we were to generate the revenue that would enable us to continue to populate that news site on a regular basis, as a news site should be, where we can consistently get new articles up in those different sections. I think that's going to continue to have value. Our traffic on the site has continued to increase, over 2,000 unique visits a month, which is really, it's up there. We had 2,500 people on our list. That's comparable to sites that are sponsored by major corporations, by major associations, by major nonprofits. And we haven't even really begun to spread the word about the availability of these sites and the information that's available, that it's provided by people who are really knowledgeable about water. And that's, I think, one of the things that happens with some of the news sites that are out there is people who think that water is important but don't necessarily have a water-related background. We did a piece called Water is Local and surveyed people like Pat Mulroy from the Southern Nevada Water Authority, a number of other folks, that, is water local or is it global? And of course it's both. But to some extent, yes, water is local. There is a very strong consideration of local conditions, whether it's physical, socioeconomic, all of those are aspects that affect what is important for water on a local basis. But the people who are thinking about water are often thinking about the same thing wherever you go. So in any community you go to, you're going to have those water people, those people who are passionate about water. And to connect those people with other water people often has its challenges, because it's difficult to get to the water conferences, to pay the kind of money it costs to go to conferences, to pay the travel costs, to have the time away from work, especially for those folks who are doing it on where it's not their job. That they serve on a water board, that they're somehow engaged in another way, and they want to be part of the dialogue, but they can't necessarily get there. So to have this dedicated network and media platforms available to share stories and help people connect to each other, and that's another reason why I think it's going to be really valuable to start to focus, to make some of the transition from the news site, which is really more of a one-way communication. And yeah, there's opportunities to put comments and everything, but that's pretty anonymous. Versus something like this, where ultimately, again, once we get the technology working properly, everybody on the call is going to be able to see what everybody else has to say. We want to be able to have more people contributing their articles to Water Citizen News. We want to be able to do more with having programs like this where we can obviously work out the technology, but also plan ahead to have a presentation, to have a specific focus, so that when you come here what it is that you're going to see, that we can deliver that and start doing this on a regular basis and make it easier for you to participate in this process. Water Citizen is about you. You're the water citizens. If you're here watching this, whether you're watching it live, whether you're watching it as a recording, Water Citizen is for you. And so I invite you to contact me at cat@watercitizen.com. You have to be nice to me because today is my birthday. That's why I did this today. Knowing that the technology wasn't perfect, I tell you, it was. I had been planning to do this since American Water Works Association has their annual conference and exposition in June. It was about a month ago, and I have been talking about doing this on my birthday ever since I used to do sort of an email every year, kind of like the ones that a lot of people do at Christmas, and they kind of say, oh, here's what I did all last year, and yada yada. Well, my birthday happens to be right about the time of the end of the second quarter, the beginning of the third quarter of the year. And so it's always been, I think, a good time to kind of take stock of where I'm at and where I'm going. But that's always been a one-way communication. I wanted to do this hangout so I could hear from you guys. And I really appreciate Al, Frank, Sean, anybody else who may be on here, but I can't see them. Can't see any names, so they're all just kind of anonymous. We will get this figured out. Who else is on here? Taj, Terry, thank you so much for coming on. I thought I had sent the link that would get you to the chat box, but I guess I got you the link to get you on the page, which is fine. But we'll get all this sorted out. I promise we will figure this out together. Like I said, this is new technology. Lead pages where Al or where Sean is watching is also a new technology. It's only been around for about a year, and it has totally changed the playing field for smaller companies to be able to very quickly get websites up and different types of websites up, and it has its kinks as well. But we're going to figure this out, and the only way we can do this is to try it out and get your feedback. And please be nice. We did have a launch earlier this year that was, I'm sure, is painful. It was definitely painful for me, and I think it was also painful for the people listening when we had quite a long period of just trying to figure out how to get the technology to work. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, if that's not going to work, we're going to do something else of value, because we appreciate your time. And I do want to wrap this up by 2:30. We're gonna keep trying, and we'll find a way to work this out. And we want to hear from you, and we certainly need to hear from you in terms of revenue streams. Of what are the things that you're doing now, that you're paying for now, that if we can do it better and support you along those lines, then whatever revenue we can come up with from that's going to help us get to the conferences and meet interesting people and capture interesting stories and be able to bring that back to you. So we do have the Wawa Mojo site. So I don't know if you've seen. Go to watercitizen.com or watercitizennews.com. You'll see a place where you can support the water mobile journalist. So that's Wawa Mojo. That is being able to go out to these stories, find the stories where they are, capture the videos, capture the interviews, and either include some of that video on the news site or invite people to come to to hangout, and we will work out the technology. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your patience. I want to wrap up. If anyone wants to contact me with more questions, please do. I'm going to put it in the chat box. cat@watercitizen.com and www.watercitizen.com is website, and that currently goes directly to the news site. We will eventually be separating that out so that Water Citizen News is the news site, and watercitizen.com is the main site that will also link to Water in Congress, Water Sexy, the Water Film Series, the Water Technology Series. We've got a lot more coming up down the line, and I hear from a numerologist friend of mine that this is going to be a year in which I get to implement all the things that I've been learning over the last 3 years, which I think is about time. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us, and to the thousands of people, literally thousands, that have been coming to Water Citizen News every month, that have allowed us to share our stories with you. We really appreciate your time, and hope to provide even more value in the coming years, and get your involvement and your feedback. Thank you so much. Take care.